Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the Village Council regular meeting September 10th, 2024 to order. I show we have a quorum, but we are missing Bob, and he is not coming tonight or not soon, correct? All right, so we don't need to usher any allowing remote participation. We'll go right to the agenda, adoption of the agenda. Do we have any changes? Hearing none, I'll need a motion to approve the agenda as presented. All's in favor?
Aye.
That's, motion passes. Next up, we have adoption of the previous minutes. You guys all get a chance to review that. Any questions, changes? All right, I'll need a motion to approve the previous minutes.
So moved.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next up, we have the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next up, we have public comment period. Austin, do we have anyone signed up?
Sorry, yes. You did have one comment submitted by email that you guys already have that. It'll be included in the minutes. That was from Mr. Chris Comiskey. For the public comment period tonight, first speaking is Ron Hamill of 3219 Oak Brook Drive.
All right. Just a reminder, we have present your name and address, and we give you 3 minutes to speak, and there's no back and forth questioning, so welcome.
Name Ron Hamill, as Mr. Gower said, my address, 3219 Oak Brook Drive. I want to know whether, since you have to reside in Marvin, I was going to see if Jamie was going to be retiring or resigning, as you would say. That is my question for today.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Next up is Chris Kennedy, 1001 Firethorn Club Lane. Is it Lane or Drive? Can't remember.
Chris Kennedy, 1001 Firethorn Club Drive. First time here. Two items I'll be super quick. First is ask for help. There's a complex drainage issue at like 4 parties on Marvin Road where all the water comes from the property. Just maybe have a meeting, some more communications on how to proceed. That'd be helpful. If not, try. Second item is, I'm sure y'all are aware, but apparently the sewage smell on Marvin Road, not only at the bridge now, but also at that new traffic circle. So I'm just raising a concern about, hey, it seems to be in more places and getting worse. If there's anything to do, I'm just curious.
Real quick, the water, where's that exactly?
So on Marvin Road, it gets to the fire from 1001. And so there's the road, the HOA has a fence, there's a neighboring property which drains into the golf course, and then all that flows downhill into like a low spot on my property. So it's crazy. So if it was just one counterpart, it'd be like, hey, how do we figure it out? If it's like 4, I'm unclear how to proceed. So part of it's
Probably reach out to Davey, reach out to Davey, get exchange numbers.
just ask for advice. Thank you.
Next up.
Okay, next up, we have, you're gonna have to help me. Sorry, I'm bad at pronunciation. Manny.
Come on up.
Address.
Introduce yourself.
Sorry.
How are you?
Thank you. So, my name is Meninder Sidhu. I just bought property at 9523 Honest Road. I don't have any question.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you.
No one else has signed up.
Okay. That said, presentations, we don't have any right now.
Excuse me, I signed up outside of the.
Are you here for the public hearing or just for general public comments? Okay, that'll be a bit later in the meeting. This is just the general public comments.
Confusion there. Reports and updates, we're going to go right into the manager's report.
I don't have anything, sir.
You, planners report. Doing this all without the mic on, sorry. Okay, thank you. Roads report.
I'll just briefly say, we are still working with AMT on the PCS, the Pavement Condition Survey. We are hoping to have that back for the work session. We're having some discussions with DOT about some roads that we want to try to get done under their purview, and then we'll bring back the recommendations, hopefully at the work session, where AMT will also be present. And then I've also asked them for a stormwater infrastructure inventory, as you all requested at the last meeting, and we'll hopefully have that on your work session. Anything else?
Thank you, Christina. Any questions, council? Next up is deputies report. Do we have an officer here? Do you guys have any questions that, on the reports? I had one. Where's Waxhaw Viking? Where's that road?
Sorry, that's the radar sign installed on Waxhaw Marvin Road by Viking Drive.
Oh, okay. I was like, is that a new road that, okay, thank you. Next up, planning board report. That would be Bob, and he's not here, so we don't have anything from him. He didn't share anything.
He did not, unless Hunter wants to give a brief update.
All right, any questions? Thank you. Next up, PR&G board report.
PRG did not meet this month. We have 2 vacancies, and one of our remaining board members was out of the country, so didn't have a meeting this month. I think we'll be in good shape for next month's meeting. I know.
That was just because of quorum? You couldn't?
Yeah, it was a
Okay.
quorum issue, so.
All right. Any questions? Thank you. Next up, Tyler, event planning report. What we got? Have you gotten in touch with the new band director yet? Look, I'll probably see her this week, so I'll let her know that you'll be reaching out.
Yeah, we spoke.
Okay?
Tyler, did you send out the email about the assistance for the friendship tree? Or make that call? Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Any questions? If you're doing the friendship tree, I'd say get here early because those things go quick, I think, so. If you feel like donating, and it's a great cause. Next up, coffee with council debrief. Who was up? Wayne?
We had one gentleman with a question, Mr. John O'Malley. He had a zoning change at 9509 Marvin School Road. He had missed the neighborhood meeting and just come in for some information. And Hunter, we called him in and he answered all his questions.
Okay. Anything else? Just one? We do that twice a month. For those of you in the audience, we're trying to be as available to our town as possible. So please come, and we're there for an hour regardless. So anyways, next up, WUMA report. We did not have a
Not
meeting.
have a meeting for lack of quorum.
Lack of quorum was, yeah, people were too many different things. So I think the next meeting is scheduled for this month. So,
September in Waxhaw, I believe, this round.
oh, it's in Waxhaw. Okay,
It's supposed
good.
to be at their new town hall if it's ready in time.
All right, thank you. Next up, we need to approve the consent agenda as presented.
So moved.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The motion passes. Next up, we have public hearing. All right. Public hearing for zoning map amendment 2024-3, 9509 Marvin School Road.
I think the podium might not be working. So can you just come over here?
I'm sorry?
Did we make a,
No, you don't need a motion.
okay. Well, I will go through the request and then open it up to the public for any comment. The village has received a application for a zoning map amendment for the property located at 9509 Marvin School Road. This property consists of two parcels totaling 5.92 acres. This request is to rezone the property from RR, rural residential, to SFR1. The request is being made by the current property owner, Mr. Thomas Fickery, and he is here. This request is being made due to, basically, if you guys recall, when we adopted the MDO back in May, we established multiple zoning districts that were different from our previous ordinance. This property has been on the market for the last 2 years. Originally, during the planning board recommendation of the zoning map amendment, as part of the adoption of the MDO, this property was identified or recommended to be zoned SFR1. For those reasons, staff has fielded a bunch of calls on this property specifically through the past 2 years. When the council adopted the MDO in May and we made some minor changes to the map, this property was one of them that went from being recommended to go from SFR1 to rural residential. This property is now under contract, and due to basically the information that was provided based off the old ordinance and so on, that's just why this request is being made. In short, the property, it's just being SFR1, which is basically consistent with what it was zoned, which is R Marvin Residential. This would allow for it to be minorly subdivided at a raw, looking at acreage frontage. Out of the two parcels, you would be able to create an additional 3 lots, or 3 newly created lots for a total of 5. It's unclear on if that's the full intent, but like I said, that was information that was provided to prospective buyers prior to the adoption of the MDO. The applicant held a neighborhood meeting per the ordinance requirement on Tuesday, September 3rd. That sign-in sheet was included in your guys' packets. The ultimate kind of questions were just, what's the intent and why is this being, why is this being requested? Staff, as well as the property owner, answered those questions. There was no, I would say, no negative feedback from any of the residents that attended that meeting. Furthermore, the planning board reviewed and discussed this at their last meeting and recommended to council to approve the rezoning. Other than that, unless you want any specifics, I'd be open to any questions, and we can also open it to the public for any comment.
Any questions from council?
I saw the planning board was 4-1 on it. What was the reasoning for the one?
In short, it was just like, basically with the adoption of the MDO, we did this rural residential district as a holding district to kind of help where development, for major minor subdivisions have to go through the rezoning process. It helps kind of control the patterns of development through the legislative process of the rezoning. With this being the first one was rezoned or zoned rural residential, it was, they saw it as an opportunity where basically, in short, why do we have the rural residential district if we're going to just approve SFR1s? Staff, as well as the rest of the planning board, felt from the time of the adoption of the NDO to where we're at now, kind of that little grace period of where the difference from what they were zoned to their new zoning, as well as, like I said, this property did go under contract right at the time of the adoption of the NDO. And so, but that was kind of the only pushback from that one planning board member who did not vote to recommend.
And the people that were in attendance, did anybody have an issue with it?
No.
No.
The only, I guess the only question, as I'm looking out with the layout, is there going to be any interference with the intersection of Jokar, with it being so close, as DOT chimed in with their recommendations on that?
So, and thank you, Andy, for bringing that up. The proposed sketch in your guys' packets is not that is just to kind of show what it could look like. That was something that was done by a potential previous buyer about a year ago. That was one of the comments that did come up during the neighborhood meeting. In short, if the property subdivided further, knowing how DOT likes to operate, I don't think they're going to want four new driveway cutouts. So you would have probably most likely a shared driveway access, which would be just a platted shared driveway easement, probably along the front. However, like I said, until that plat, if the property is to be subdivided further and that plat comes in, that would be the comment and stuff that I would discuss with DOT at that time.
Okay.
So the diagram that we're seeing, which we're saying isn't necessarily what it's going to end up, that is reflective, though, of the total of the 5 acres. And that would mean that the existing home, is one of these the existing home that's there, or which one is the existing home?
The second from the left, second, yep.
Second from the left, okay. So it would be that one is the one that's currently there.
Correct. And like I said, this is a sketch kind of showing lot design based off of acreage, minimum frontage requirements. This, for example, today would not be approved because you're creating a flag lot, unless they would be able to meet those requirements in the Marvin Development Ordinance. However, the lots could still be shifted. I believe there's enough frontage still to technically comply to get 5 lots, and the acreage is there. The only thing, yes, to your point, the existing structure would have to comply. The lot that the existing structure sits on would have to comply as well. So that could change how the lots ultimately lay out. So it could only be two new created lots for a total of 4.
Because if you tried to put them all along Marvin School Road, each one would have to have a certain amount of frontage.
Correct. It's a minimum of 130 feet in width.
And that's regardless of where the access from a driveway
Correct.
perspective is.
Have we taken into consideration about the hopeful future roundabout at that corner?
We have not, but that can be, if the property is to go through the minor subdivision process, which is the abbreviated process, they can't dedicate right-of-way as part of a minor subdivision. if the properties go through a major subdivision, that is something that can then be definitely discussed further.
Okay, because that definitely needs to be taken in consideration, because that's gonna bump up to where I'm sure we're gonna need an easement, and I don't want somebody's, front yard being,
Correct, like I said, this is just a sketch that, but if a plat were to be, if the rezoning is approved and a plat were to come to staff, all that stuff would be reviewed and discussed with the applicant.
okay, and what's the max number of lots, 5?
Correct, yes. At SFR 1.
So just looking at this, and I know you said this is not anything that's going to be presented anytime soon. I see the new private drive. Where else would you potentially see, with getting 5 lots in it, where there would be a good sight line to get out on that, on the far end?
It would be probably the far, yes.
But how do you get?
So-
I guess you can do it the opposite way and just have the,
Well, what would probably happen with working with DOT on this and other minor subdivisions, I would see one of two things happening. You would either have 2 shared driveway accesses, so you'd have a driveway easement that straddles the property line and then breaks off similar to the gates, so then you're limiting from 4 cutouts to 2. Or you would have something similar to a single driveway access and basically a access parallel road, but it's not a road, it's a driveway. And that would be platted on the easement, similar to the 5 lots across from the park, Marvin Villas. They do have 2 accesses, but that would be up to DOT if they wanted to allow 1 or 2 single ingress egress accesses.
all right, any other questions?
You do need to open it up to the public now.
Right, so we need a motion for that?
You do
to
not
open
need a
up. So, okay, so I think there was a gentleman, or do we have an order of who's speaking? Austin?
Yes. John O'Malley? Since our podium mic is not working, do you mind standing by the dais and speaking into this one? Okay.
Hello, I'm John O'Malley. I live at 9005 Whirlaway Lane in Providence Downs. I've been there for 19 years and really enjoy Marvin. I actually met with Wayne and John and Hunter the other day because I was not aware of the meeting last week. And so I have some serious concerns about this proposed, reordering of the property. First of all, I live on a cul-de-sac, and one of the reasons I bought the house I did buy was because we have a beautiful wooded area behind us. You can't see Marvin School Road, can't see the other house behind us. And obviously, some things have changed, perhaps, since we bought the house 19 years ago, because I was under the understanding that nothing could be developed there at the time. Recognizing that something has changed, or likely to change, the drawing that you have in your document is totally unacceptable. The house is literally 20 feet from my swimming pool. So when I talked to Hunter last week, he said that is absolutely unacceptable and that won't be approved. So my concern is if you do subdivide it, and some things you can fight and some things you can't, I would certainly want to maintain that tree line in the back so my property is protected and my view is maintained, and that those houses are facing out to Marvin School Road, not back towards my property. So, maybe that's an acceptable option. I don't know. There's others on my street who are also very concerned, and we want to maintain the privacy, the quiet, and the beauty of what Marvin's all about for us. So that's my point. I hope whatever decision you make, at the end of the day, whatever the final plot is, if it's not acceptable, you'll be hearing from me and others. Thank you.
Hunter, what would the buffers be?
So if the property is subdivided, the setbacks the difference between the setbacks in SRR and SFR 1 is basically the only difference is the minimum lot width and the lot size. However, those front setbacks are 50 feet on the front, 40 feet on the rear, and then 16 feet on the side. Those are the minimums. So for the property to be subdivided, all of those lots would have to comply with those minimum setbacks. Regarding buffering, through the minor subdivision process, there should be don't quote me on this because I want to grab the book, but it's a 25-foot tree preservation perimeter strip, meaning that the way, like I said, in that depiction, like I said, that's based off the old ordinance that allowed flag lots because it allowed 50-foot minimum frontage, which the new ordinance has different requirements regarding flag lots. And so that's why that lot specifically would not comply under the new ordinance. Sorry, where I was going with this. So house orientation, all that, if the property is to be subdivided and looking at where the existing structure's at, most likely all the houses would kind of they would be narrow and long to an extent, so there would be adequate rear yard setback for any of the new lots created.
Do you see where they could get 5 with facing Marvin School Road?
Without getting maybe a smidge of property here or there from one of the adjoining property owners on left or right, it's hard to say. It has the frontage, however, how that property goes curved up, that's where, without having a official survey, I can't say for certain. But it does have the minimum acreage and it would have the minimum lot width based off of road frontage currently.
If we rezoned it and it would be a minor subdivision, they have to come back to us for lot layout?
No, minor subdivisions
Okay,
are,
Olmey's saying yes, you're saying no. So, no, they don't have to come back to us.
no, minor subdivisions are a staff-approved, staff reviews those plats for compliance, and then they would be approved via staff if they comply with the lots. It would not come back to council. Major subdivision plans do. They don't necessarily come to council for approval, but it is a courtesy review. This is where, if you recall, with the adoption, what Rick was stating with the adoption MDO, technically, those reviewing and approving subdivision plans and plats is a administrative task, and that's where council had that authority under the old ordinance, but in theory, you guys could be challenged if you were to deny something that's by right that complies. So that's why the rezoning and legislative process is basically that initial step. That's all those things that you would consider with taking into consideration of a rezoning. You think of what the worst case or what could happen because you don't have anything to necessarily tie it to. And with this being a SFR 1 request, staff feels like this is, it's in line with what the original zoning of the property was under the old ordinance. And the most that it could, like I said, the most off of just raw acreage and road frontage would be a total of 5 lots total. But it wouldn't be more than that, because then that would also then trigger a major subdivision process. But it doesn't have the acreage to comply with that anyway.
But this private road option with I guess the lot in the back is what you're calling a flag lot, that this would not be.
Under the new MDO note, that would not comply.
Going back to that sketch, though, when you're talking about the section that becomes an irregular sized lot, not a rectangle, how does our ordinances in regards to the creation of irregular lot lines fall into that?
So it'd still have to meet that minimum lot width. That minimum lot width would have to be maintained to at least the rear setback, meaning that it could look like a ice cream cone, but that rear setback line still is 40 feet. So that means that a structure still has to be 40 feet off both of those interior sidelines. So then that would potentially push it forward, and if it can still comply with the front then and the sides, then it's doable. But if they were to come to subdivide and get a zoning permit for the structure, that rear build line of that proposed structure would have to comply with the side setbacks and the rear.
So you got a pie-shaped lot,
Yep.
right? From this point would be your rear, right?
Correct.
So the setback from that point, it would have to be wide enough.
It's still from the rear setback is then measured from the back of the build line of the structure. So if you were to go stand out of your house, look left, look right, all that's technically supposed to comply with rear setback. So in a regular or typical type of lot, rectangle, square, it makes sense. But in these irregular situations, the back corner of that proposed structure would still have to be 40 feet off the side.
Would you ever foresee because I guess I'm concerned, you put 5 homes in there along Marvin Road, and each one has their own driveway that comes out onto Marvin School Road. It's going to be an issue there. And so I'm almost looking at, like, in my view, it'd be forced to reverse it and have a road like they have presented in there, and everyone shares.
So like I said, driveway permits are issued, with that being an NCDOT road, those driveway permits are approved by NCDOT. Based off of some previous minor subdivisions, for example, the 3 lots on Marvin Road across from Firethorn that were subdivided a couple years back, the gates in Marvin Villas, in these cases now, DOT doesn't want that, and we're aware of that. So at the time when a minor subdivision plat comes, that's something we already know and try and have them add to the plat before it's recorded to go ahead and have a shared driveway easement. So then, once it's subdivided, it goes to DOT, and basically DOT sees that and only issues 1 or 2 driveway permits, however it's done. So staff would consult with DOT on those driveway access, so we can go ahead and get it added to the plat.
And just one of the larger concerns we heard from the resident that backs up to this property, it's a 25-foot tree buffer off the property line that they would
Correct.
have to maintain?
Correct.
Now, is that a tree buffer that they can decide to take trees out but replant, or that has to?
It's supposed to be a preservation strip.
Okay.
So it's not, so.
They can't take them out and mitigate it by doing it somewhere else, or?
Correct. So in short, you'd have your 40-foot rear setback. It's not 40 feet and then 25, like it's not a total of 65. That 25-foot is just a perimeter. So what that does basically prohibit is like for accessory structures and stuff, because accessory structures have lesser setbacks than the principal. So it would then allow for that tree preservation to be maintained. But it's not an additional like setback. It would be in a major subdivision because then it's platted as common open space, but for this, just per our ordinance, it would just be a 25-foot preservation easement on the plat is what the ordinance requires.
So Hunter, tonight, what we're looking at right here is just,
Hypothetical.
this is their application for rezoning.
Yes, sir.
And they've just given us some ideas of what they could do or might do.
That's correct. Like I said, with this being the first rezoning that you're seeing from RR to SFR1, I know council as well as the public is used to seeing during neighborhood meetings and stuff like plats or a site plan. Right. However, approving this rezoning does not tie the site plan to the rezoning, not in a conventional rezoning process.
There's one other thing here. This is not the buyer making the request, it is the owner.
Correct.
Owner.
Right, I understand that. Okay. I just want to know what we are actually looking at tonight.
Yes, and I'll clarify with the rezoning, the depiction is really, it shows you what could happen, but it really wouldn't even comply with our current zoning. And you have to assume, what you're really here to do is look and say, does this zoning make sense? Is it consistent with the density of the other areas? Should this be the SRF? And some of the other items are going to be similar. The setbacks are going to be similar in either zoning. So you're trying to look and see if this is consistent. And oftentimes you're going to have areas with property, either they're going to get the zoning for topographical areas. You may have a gully, so you can only get 3 houses, or you may have access. I think their issue here is going to be access. But you're just looking to say, okay, does the zoning make sense? And then they may or may not be able to get 5 lots. May well be a challenge in this
So
one.
even if we do change it, they may not, with what they present to us, could be like.
Oh, it could be totally
And again,
different.
we're not asking about topography of the thing and what it, if you can build on it or not build on it. It's just a zone.
Correct.
And 5.9 acres, correct?
5.92,
And
yeah.
that typically would yield 5.
Correct. And so from a zoning standpoint, and this is a question that I get asked all the time, like a lot of residents or prospective buyers of property say, well, hey, can this be subdivided? It's 4 acres. Well, it's 4 acres, but only has 150 feet of road frontage. So unless they apply to rezone to SFR 2 or 3, no, it can't be subdivided. And so, you know, through this process, and especially with the neighborhood meeting, with this being like the property owner making the request, he didn't have a site plan or any of that to present. And so that's why this was just used as a depiction to kind of show, when I say worst case, of like really the most lots you could probably get, we could be able to get out of the property. And that's something that you'll see probably moving forward with any rezoning, just because that is something that you guys have to take into consideration. As Chaplain mentioned, like you're giving the zoning to them, and you don't want to be presented, like if they were to show 3 lots in this, but then come and you see it subdivided later that's got 5, it's obviously going to raise some questions. So I'd rather go ahead and get ahead of what the worst case could be and make that decision based off of, or let council make that decision off of the worst, but it always can be less.
So in reality, on these 5.7 acres or whatever, you know, what we're seeing is how it could potentially be carved into 5 and what kind of, you know, area around the houses would be. But, you know, in all likelihood, given these other challenges of how you have to have setbacks and all these other things, it's more likely to be 4.
Potentially, like I said, I can't say for 100%
Oh,
certain,
yeah.
but yeah, I mean.
Understood.
Because like I said, all lots, and that's what, in a minor subdivision process, all lots have to comply with those minimum lot sizes, minimum lot dimensions. The structures then, like, they could even potentially have a 5th lot that complies with all that. However, making it buildable is, once again, to your point of like that cone lot, like the actual building pad, you know, may not be able to comply with the setback. So that's all stuff that I always recommend to surveyors as well as, you know, applicants in these situations, to make sure all of that stuff complies before they even submit me a plat to review. Because I can look at acreage and I can look at frontage and be like, yeah, in theory you can do this, but there's other features of the property that need to be reviewed before they really take that next step to apply for something.
Any other questions?
So, Hunter, on Marvin School Road, where that goes there, we still have all the restrictions in place, because these houses are, you know,
Correct.
faced away from it. We have all the restrictions that we need, and they need to abide by, that takes care of the buffer in the back as well.
Correct. So even on that depiction or of that conceptual plan under the old ordinance, technically those houses, even under the old ordinance and the new, they're supposed to front Marvin School Road, which would bring them closer to the road, and that's where the front of the house would be. Like I said, that was, if I could, I don't have CAD, I would have taken the houses out and just kind of showed the lot kind of layout. But yes, like, so the houses have to front an existing approved road in a minor subdivision, for a minor subdivision. So they would have to front Marvin School Road in this case.
Okay, any other questions from council?
Do we have anybody else signed up?
No,
Is there anybody else here that's for the public hearing that would like to say something?
the owners here, if Thomas wants to come up.
Come on down.
Here, you'll have to come over here.
Good evening. I'm Tom McVickry. Of course, I own the property. The main reason for this was obviously we were never told that it was reduced from SF1 to the other zoning. I've lived there 32 years. I've owned the property 39 years, and it was always 1 acre per house. That's the way it's been for years. But the thing that we have an issue with, we have had the property on the market for 2 to 3 years. And again, we were just never notified that we were changed of the SF1. My other issue is, originally when we purchased the property, My plan was to build in the middle, let my kids build on each side. And honestly, since we've had it on the market, multiple people, the ones that are wanting to purchase it, are either just like they wanted to take the existing house, let their kids build on each side, or there was someone to develop it. But like Hunter said, we have no idea what the developer wants to do initially, but my reasoning is I want it back to where it was before it got rezoned. Again, we just didn't have an opportunity to fight it at that time. And honestly, if our realtor now hadn't found out, we still wouldn't know. But that's just the reason that we're trying to get it back to where it was.
When was it changed back? Changed to the,
The adoption of the
okay,
MDO.
okay.
Like I said, and it was recommended originally and recommended by planning board to be SFR1. It just got wrapped up into those changes that were made by the council at the adoption of the MDO with the property. And so that's, why there wasn't notification, any of that stuff, but it got wrapped up into those 6 properties, I think, that the zoning changed from what the recommendation from planning board was to the time of the adoption of the MDO.
So tonight, or what we're looking at is giving the owner the option or the right to do what he should have originally been able to do with his property.
Correct.
Am I missing something on that?
No, sir.
Okay. Thank you for.
Thank you. Anyone else? Comments? Should we close the public hearing then? You don't need a motion for that, right? So we'll go right into discussion between council members.
Well, I had the opportunity to speak with Mr. O'Malley when he came out and to coffee with council, so I thank him for that and taking an interest. Also, hearing from the landowner himself, I think we make some of these blanket decisions, and when we did the MDO, even in my neighborhood, we got zoned rural residential. We're actually very happy about that because, we're a community of 5-acre lots and so forth. But I think it is important to understand the situation that he's in as well, having marketed, this product, for the last 2 or 3 years and trying to, gain interest in buyers and stuff and then to kind of have it switched. So, given the other safeguards that we do have, with tree buffers and things like that will be a part of the process. And to my understanding, at least at a minimum, there will be a 25-foot tree buffer. And also kind of understanding some of the challenges of the layout of this lot. They may get 5 in there, but it could be 4 too. So I think 4 would fit a lot easier for folks, but, they're going to try to get whatever they can under the ordinances. So, I'd be open to approving this, mainly because I think we'd be kind of taking some rights away that he had been negotiating with, trying to sell it over the last 2-3 years in good faith. And I think we can still have some safeguards in place through our process to help to protect the adjacent homeowners.
Any other comments?
I agree with John.
Yeah, and I think Chaplain brought up a good point, does it fit the area? And the entire area is SFR1, including Providence Downs. So it fits the zoning surrounding it. I certainly understand the concerns of the tree buffer and all that. But as far as the zoning, SFR1, from my standpoint, fits the property.
Wayne?
This is the second time I've heard this, so I've already made up my mind. I think John's right, what we discussed and what would be right for the owner.
Okay. And Kim?
No, I'm good.
All right. Someone want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to adopt an ordinance amending the official zoning map to rezone the 5.92 acre property, 2 parcels located at 9509 Marvin School Road, Marvin, North Carolina, 28173, parcel number 06204007A and 06204007B from rural residential RR to single-family residential SFR1, and find that the proposed zoning map amendment is consistent with the Village of Marvin 2020 Land Use Plan and other officially adopted village plans and is reasonable and in the public interest.
Further discussion? All's in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion passes unanimously. All right, moving on to unfinished business. We have discussion of Claridge Court drainage improvements. Who's got this? Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
So just, I'll start from an update standpoint. Per the direction from the village council at your work session in August, I was directed to reach out to the HOA and the individual property owners to set up meetings to discuss this further. I believe all of y'all were sent a copy or information from the HOA regarding the HOA and property owner dispute regarding the violation that the HOA enforced on the property owner. With that being said, I wanted to kind of open this up for discussion further to see if council still wants to move forward with having those conversations with the property owners, or if we want to see how it plays out regarding, the tree removal and the berm, and see if this is something that then needs to be reconsidered at a later date. Just want to kind of open that up so staff can have the, direction on where to go from here.
I'll go ahead and start out. I think that in light of all of the details, everything that has transcribed, everything that's happened, I feel like putting the drainage ditch in at the end of the cul-de-sac and routing it down the drainage easement on the right-hand side, if you're in the cul-de-sac, is probably the best option. It will prohibit any further issues from water running over the lower properties and doing any damage to anybody's homes from now until it fixes the problem permanently once and for all.
Any other comments? I tend to agree with Andy. I had been out on the site and determined that, based on all the things that have happened and stuff, that may be the easiest or plan going forward, if you haven't had a chance to go out there. But I agree with that, and there's a natural drainage sewer, is it a
Drainage
sewer?
easement
It's
that
an,
was-
it's an easement, but there's also a,
There's a creek behind that it goes
right,
to.
I'm not, it's
swale?
not a creek. No, what's right in front that's actually built in there? Isn't there a drain right there that
Now,
goes
there's a
under,
drainage
or is it a
easement on either
natural
side of the two
drainage?
properties, so
Okay.
that was put in there
In the
Right.
beginning, yes.
in the beginning. So
Okay,
that would follow down the one drainage easement.
okay. Any other questions? So the recommendation going forward, just to refresh, to be clear, would be to clear,
So that's what staff's trying, so based off the information received from the HOA, if you guys had a chance to review that, as well as, one of the questions that I kept getting was how much of a drainage issue is there? Like I said, it's unclear. A lot of these improvements done by the individual property owner were done prior to the development being completed. So now the development is completed, final layers on. I'm not sure how much of an storm drainage issue. I don't know how much of that's occurring. So that's what, if staff wanted to get council's feedback and direction to see if we want to let that play out and then see if that issue, if it's not resolved, then we do the ditch, or if we want to still move forward with having those individual meetings with the individual property owners. Because if you recall, one property owner supports this project, the other one does not. So that's kind of where the discrepancy's at, is having the two affected property owners having a 50-50 split on one wanting it and one not.
So is it fair to say that the information we received from the HOA board was kind of their position on which of those property owners, needs to adjust, or?
Correct. So the violation from the HOA issued on the individual property owner was regarding the berm and the trees not receiving proper ARC approval. That is between the HOA and the individual property owner. The village has no stake in that game. However, that's why then this was brought up, was that if the property owner has to remove that berm and tree, which that is my understanding that the HOA came to that determination, then for staff to look at potential solutions to go ahead and address that concern, and that's what this proposed project would be. However, then the neighboring property does not, has been working on individual plans for his individual property, and so therefore doesn't necessarily support, he told me he does not support the village doing this work because of his plans that he's been working on.
Well, at this point, it's not his decision, it's ours. It's our
Correct.
road, it's our water problem, and I have been there and witnessed this water issue. I have watched it with my own two eyes standing out there, and it is a problem. I can attest to it myself, and this has been an ongoing situation for a long time, and it's not getting any better. There was some crowning done when the final paving, but if you stand there at the bottom of the hill and look up the hill, you can see a definite path of water straight down. It's not enough of a crown to divert all the water that comes down in a heavy rain. So no matter what happens, there's going to be an invasion of water unless we put a ditch to carry it around and divert it away from these two homes. The homeowner on the one side that doesn't want it, to my knowledge, is not an engineer, and this is our problem, and it's our right-of-way, and we need to address it, not for the people that live there now specifically, but for anybody that will come down the road. This is a permanent fix that will handle this forever. So I firmly stand on the fact that we should fix this now and get it done and be done and over with.
And just so I'm clear, the fix now that you're proposing is the $12,000 quote in the agenda? Okay.
Yes.
So that removes the current plantings and creates essentially a ditch
A ditch.
there that
Exactly
leads
a
to the
ditch.
right side. Okay.
Yeah, the plan's in your, if you look in the computer, it shows the plans.
And when we talk about, doing that work, I believe the HOA gave the resident until December or something like that to remediate the current issue. Is that correct?
Yes.
And if that's the case, we would have to wait for them to do that work
No.
before doing the
We
ditch?
don't
or-
have to wait for anything. What I would like to do as a courtesy is to coordinate the ditch being done with the removal of the trees so that there's no lapse in protection from the water. Because all it
It's all
would take
done
would
at
be.
the same
Yeah,
time.
just done at the same time. Because if we get a heavy storm,
There's really not much to remove.
But to clarify,
That I recall.
to clarify, you're asking that the property owner still pay, or at their own expense, to have the berm and trees removed. It wouldn't be as part of the village's project. Or are you saying that the village do it as part of their project?
I mean, if it's, the trees are coming down one way or the other. If it's not an extra expense for us to just rip the trees out as we dig the ditch, then I don't see any reason why we couldn't just take the trees out when we dig the ditch. My experience running a backhoe, it doesn't slow down on a small tree, so, I don't see any reason why we couldn't just take them out while we're digging it.
Is that on the property owners?
Hunter, the berm would be out of the right-of-way, would it not?
No, the berm that I'm referring to is in the right of way. The other berm is that has got brought into this is not, that's along the storm drainage
berm-
easement on the side of the
berm
property.
along the front of the right-of-way would be encompassed in the regrading with the installation
Of the ditch,
of the ditch.
yes,
So it would naturally take out the berm, I would assume.
yes.
Yes.
Okay.
So what we're removing, is that on our easement currently?
Is in the right-of-way, yes.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, so it would be
Yeah.
part of the project then? And I assume that's what the bid includes, right?
So that's just an engineered quote. Like I said, this was for discussion purposes, but that's what our engineer drafted up and quoted based off of material costs and labor. We would most likely, if council moves forward with doing this project, we would use our contract with Union Environmental to do the work. So I would just have to coordinate with them to get an actual cost, if that's what, if council wants to move forward with the project, and staff can work with getting that formal proposal and work on a budget amendment, I'm assuming.
And if we weren't to go that route, it would kind of necessarily put the ball back in that homeowner's court to have to pay the full expense of them doing that before we even put the ditch in.
Regarding removing the berm and the trees?
Yeah.
Yeah, correct.
But that goes back to like, we couldn't touch DOTs when we were building this building. We couldn't touch DOTs right of way. How is it the right of a homeowner to touch our right of way?
What do you mean?
If the ditch is is already in our right of way, how can it go back to the homeowner to fork over the funds for that when it's in our right of way? It's not on their property. And we faced the same thing with DOT, if you remember, on the water, the ditches, and all the problems we had when we were building this. And they told us we couldn't do anything with it. That was basically their property. What's the difference? I mean,
Well, there's no ditch or anything currently. That's the biggest difference. So
know what?
there's no ditch or anything
Oh,
currently.
I know, but there's plantings in there, but we need to create a ditch to mitigate the issue of the water
Right.
anyways, because we know that's a road issue that's creating issues with the homeowner.
Correct.
because there is
So
no ditch.
that's what, so if council were to move forward, like I said, it's in our right of way, there's not an encroachment agreement, so we would, I mean, legally, I guess, we would be able to remove those, since it is in our right of way. However, like I said, that's just what I was trying to get clarification on, is if we wanted to include that, like I said, it's included in the quote for the most part, or have it done at the homeowner's expense. That's what I was just trying to make sure we were all on the same page on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't see it as a bad thing, you know, the homeowner, and whether they knew they were putting something on the easement or not when they built this up. It might take the sting out of it a little bit if they don't have to pay for tearing out something that they invested putting in. And I know we don't always want to, you know, be in these situations, certainly. But, you know, I think that's kind of a small concession if we're going to have a backhoe doing the work there and everything anyway.
So if I'm making sure it's clear, staff will work and get a formal quote from Union Environmental, as well as further have those conversations with the individual property owners / potentially set up a meeting with them, and, you know, staff can reach out to council if any members of council want to attend that, and then potentially bring this back during the work session for final approval. Does that sound good to everybody?
You'll need a motion on this, though.
No.
Okay. All right. We all good, council?
Yep.
All right, thank you. Next up, new business, consider appointments to the PR&G Board for unexpired terms expiring 3/1/2026 and 3/1/2027.
You guys have three applications in your agenda packet for two positions. Both are unexpired terms vacated by Bob Nunnenkamp and Jennifer Barbara. One seat will expire 3/1/2026, the other 3/1/2027. Per your rules of procedure, you all just need to go and make nominations for each of the seats and then vote to see who has the most votes.
All right, so I'm going to nominate Michael Vitone for the term expiring 3/1/2026.
Any other nominations for that seat?
All right, we need a motion to approve that.
And now you need a
I'll make
motion.
a motion to appoint Michael Vitone to the PR&G Board for the unexpired term expiring 3/1/2026.
Further discussion? All's in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
And then I'd like to nominate Deb Sokol for the position on the Parks Rec and Greenway Board for the unexpired term expiring 3/1/2027.
Any other nominations?
All right, need a motion.
So then I'll make a motion to appoint Deb Sokol to the PRNG Board for an unexpired term expiring 3/1/2027.
Second.
Further discussion? All's in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
We'll notify the applicants and move forward from there.
All right. Next up, we have discuss and consider allowing Marsh to assume rentals of community garden at Marvin Eford Park. Who's got this?
I do.
Hi, Jill.
Me and Jill.
All right, so Mayor Pro Tem Vandenberg and I recently met with Bob Nunnenkamp and Christina Kolb regarding Marsh. They, as you know, well, you may or may not know, but they have an educational program that they do in Union County Schools every single year where they go into the schools, I think in a cooperation with Urban Forester, and they teach the kids about trees. They plant, the kids actually get involved in planting them and caring for them, naming them. It's kind of a favorite annual program that they do, and they were able to do it each year because they received donated trees from the National Wildlife Foundation. That partnership is no longer happening, and they're not getting those donated trees. So we met with them just to kind of brainstorm different ways that they could fundraise or raise revenue to purchase those trees and or to get businesses or donors to cover the cost. As part of that conversation, I asked how they would feel about the possibility of taking over the administrative management of our community garden. So just as some backstory, we have 30 garden beds. We do lease those out annually. We have had 100% lease of every garden bed for the last 3+ years, but it does generate quite a small amount of revenue for the village. It's only about $800 a year. You know, we keep it very affordable. It's a beautiful community garden. It was an Eagle Scout project, but it does take a lot of time of staff, and many of us are involved between communications, promoting it, Mary and myself handling payments and the finance aspect, and Tyler promoting it and talking to current leasers and trying to get them to re-sign up and managing a wait list. It's a lot of time on staff for a very small amount of revenue. They were very interested in that idea. They think they had the bandwidth to take over kind of getting those beds rented, managing that process, really kind of making it more of a community because staff doesn't have time to do it. It's $800 of revenue that they would keep, so they would keep the $25 per bed in exchange for taking that off of our plates. I do think it's a revenue that we can afford to pass for the cost savings on staff time, and they were very excited about it. Ms. Vandenberg and I just wanted to bring it to your attention and see if you wanted to discuss and consider allowing them to kind of take that over. It doesn't have to be permanent. If and when Marsh decides it's not working or they don't want to do it, we can always take it back. There's really no loss to us here. It would just really help us out.
So my first question. Did you have Go ahead.
They also had an idea of possibly expanding the community garden as well. So kind of looking at the space, I know that there's a fence there, but they're talking about possibly being able to expand it for additional revenue, which would hopefully then cover their whole kind of project that they were looking for funds for, but also use it more as, yes, they want it for the revenue, but also being able to really utilize those as teaching opportunities. So, I think it's a good idea, but we wanted to bring it to you guys.
I think it's a great idea, and there's plenty of room to expand there. I know the fence would have to be moved out because they did fence it for critters, but there's plenty of room down there to expand, so I think it's a great idea.
So, and I do, first looking at this, I do too. Just a couple things I would, to your point about maybe they're not interested in a couple years. we do a couple year test to see how it goes, to see if it's really affecting us at all. I mean, enter into some agreement like that so we have the ability to go back and say, or have some sort of contractual thing with Marsh that's in place before we just
Well, this
do
is-
that.
This is budgetary as well, so I mean.
Right.
We're gonna address it each year.
Right.
When it comes budget season, so.
Well, and that goes to my other question is as they want to expand and stuff, is that going to be on the village's nickel, or is it going to be on through their budget, they expand?
I think they would be looking at like Eagle Scout projects to expand it.
Okay.
Yeah.
It
They-
would not, they would not be looking to the village for help with the expansion, except the land part of it.
No,
Right.
I love taking it off of staff's hands. I agree with all of that, and I think that you probably get a little bit better tentativeness to it as well, so that's
Yeah,
good. But I definitely would want to have some sort of contract with them.
I think we'd want to keep it simple because of the amount involved, probably like a licensing agreement. That way you could have them authorized to do this for a period of time, 2 years or 1 year, and that would put you back in control.
And then we can renew it.
Right.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, one other thing I'd want to make sure that whatever agreement we work out with this for whatever term is to make sure that we're providing them the access to the water, because the water, they are separately, so we'd want to make sure that that's accounted for.
Yeah,
There's
that's
that shed there that aren't necessarily inside the garden, but I think would be appropriate to make sure that we, the other thing is in the last 24 hours, Marsh actually changed their name to Habitat Builders. So I just want to make sure if anybody hears that.
That was on my list to talk about too.
Sorry.
Steal my thunder, John. No, it's okay. No.
Didn't mean that.
No, Bob did call me and he wanted me
Habitat
to let council know that the name would be changing for, I guess it's like a,
What is
The-
it
the-
again? No.
yeah, I don't even know what they.
Habitat Builders.
Yeah, they hadn't figured it out when I talked to Bob, but they were being forced to change the name by the national organization. And they just wanted to make sure that because it didn't have Marvin in there anymore, that we would still support them. And I said, I can't imagine that we wouldn't. But he just wanted that, just kind of that thumbs up, it's okay, we'll still continue to support them.
I think this is one of those overall wins for both. And the
Both,
simple
actually,
things that we
all
can do to make that
community
happen, we should make happen.
Okay.
All right,
Good.
so we need a
I will-
motion?
Do we need a motion for that?
Yep.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion to allow Marsh to assume rentals of the community garden at Marvin Neiford Park
With a licensing contract.
with a licensing contract.
Not to exceed 2 years?
Well, we'll just,
I think
we'll
that-
leave it broad and we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
You probably have a contract back on your consent agenda.
Okay.
All right. Motion's on the table. Further discussion? All's in favor?
Aye. And I will let Bob know.
Motion passes unanimously. Next up, open topics. Going around the horn. We got anything? Nothing. That's good,
I do.
good. We were this close. You should have kicked me.
Yeah. Well, Kim and I were actually having a conversation the other day, and we thought that it might be prudent to bring this up to council. So I think everybody can be in agreement that we have a speeding problem in the village. Our deputies are great, but there's not enough of them. They're just spread too thin to be able to handle the speeding as well as security. So we were curious if it was allowed, if the sheriff's department would allow it to use off-duty for targeted traffic enforcement for, a part-time kind of basis, and if it would actually help, if we could do, because my observations, living on a main road, by and large, when you look at our numbers, it shows that the traffic is 85% in compliance with the speed. A lot of that has to do with the traffic volume. Good luck speeding during high-volume times, because you can't. There's too many cars on the road. The speeding that most of us see is in the evening hours and during summer when the kids are out hot riding around, but a lot of it in the evening times when the traffic is light, that's when people have a tendency to do the crazy stuff that they do. And this is where these rollover accidents and all these other crazy things happen. So I don't know if it's doable, if it's something that the sheriff's department would entertain. I would think that it would be an easy duty for a deputy to be doing traffic rather than standing in the middle of an intersection and risking their life getting run over. So, you know, that's just,
Christina, can you check with our?
Yeah.
And just find out, like, if that's like an option, and then how much would it be per hour, and then let's look at the numbers, because I feel like that's gonna be cheaper than a third. And I know that we can't, even our deputies, we can't say, okay, go do speed over there. We can request it, but we can't
but if-
dictate what they do.
but if they're off-duty signing
Yes,
up
then we
for an
can.
assignment, then we can say, this is the assignment. So maybe that works.
We can ask.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks, guys. Real quick, it just made me think of something we started about signs and stuff, and Davey, this may be for you. So I just noticed on a walk this morning at the end of Firethorn, at the very end, before you go into the cul-de-sac and make a right on Spyglass, it appears that someone just put up a yellow sign, looks semi-official, that says no outlet. Was that our doing? Okay, so as I inquired about that, my wife, I actually took a picture of it, so I think there are some issues with kids playing in that area, including some kids riding on mini bikes, and we had 2 near hits from, and I won't go into who did it, but 2 incidents that I know of that almost hit the kids because of the high bushes, and they're running around with it. So I think their answer to that was put out the kids at play sign, as well as someone put up right before you go into the cul-de-sac, a big yellow sign that says no outlet. It's at the end of Firethorn. End of
At the
Firethorn.
very end.
I'll show you a picture of it, so.
It doesn't look appealing.
No, it's
It is.
ugly as.
I can speak to some of that. The
Okay.
homeowner association representative reached out last week about a no outlet sign, or maybe the last 2 weeks, about no outlet signs for that stretch of road, because when you turn, you can turn right on Seminole, but
Most people go
don't.
through
They
thinking
just
it goes through and they end up
Right.
turning around.
So I went out and took, and inspected it. There is no outlet sign already built into the decorative signage for that portion. That doesn't necessarily mean that anyone, drivers will see it as they come down through there. But my response back to them was there is a no outlet sign already present for Firethorn Club Drive, but they're privately owned signs. The decorative signage is owned by the HOA. So if they needed to add additional signs to it, it would be
I
their
just, it
responsibility.
doesn't go with our whole thing, we went to getting mailbox all one sign, we even have, I think, real estate signs standardized on that, and it just sticks out like a sore thumb, like it probably should, to get attention, because a lot of people do go down there and end up turning around, including large trucks and stuff, thinking it goes through, so we gave approval, but it just,
No, I did not give any approval for, I said
Okay.
if you're going to add any additional signage, it would be their responsibility, but the HOA, I would imagine, the property management group would have to reach out to the board for that approval,
So it
for any
sounds like
type
an
of signage
HOA
that would
issue.
be added.
HOA issue. Okay.
Well, any new signage that's installed within our right-of-way would have to come to us for an encroachment agreement.
Right, that's what I'm thinking. They shouldn't have been able to just put it up there, correct?
Correct.
That's where
Not
I'm going
legally.
with this. Okay, so we should address it with the HOA, saying, hey, that sign is,
And I
Should
can
be
reach
an-
out to them about that.
okay. The
That would be
mini
great.
bike riding is a whole different issue with the HOA, so, and the law, quite frankly, so, the law. So, and one last thing, it was brought to my attention from Austin this morning, sad news, that Melody Graham had called him to inform us that former Mayor Mike Cognac passed away from cancer, and Mr. Cognac has served as our mayor from 2005 to 2007. He is also a council member from 2001 to 2005, and as a mayor pro tem from 2003 to 2005. I've met him on a number of occasions, and he's always out, and he's called me on occasions and stuff, but I think Jamie I'll give you the opportunity to say a few words if you would, but our hearts go out to his family, his wife Chris, and 2 sons, Alex and Drew, and
I have known Mike probably for over 20 years, and Mike was just one that was just always had, he's a treasure to the community. He always involved himself into the community. He was just, he enjoyed giving back. And he was just a true person that would listen to anyone about anything and sit down and have a discussion for. And I always respected him. I was fortunate and honored enough to play a lot of golf with him, and got to know the family for quite a while, but he will certainly be missed. My heart really goes out to Chris and the boys. But he's a great person, and Marvin lost a good one today.
John?
Yeah, I first started volunteering for the Village of Marvin in around 2001, which is right about when Mike first started serving, and continued to have different volunteer roles through 2007. So I had a lot of opportunities to work with Mike starting as a council member through Mayor Pro Tem and then as mayor. And I used to like to joke with him. He ran for county council, and I said, "You're the only Democrat I've ever voted for." So, but not only what he did from a community perspective within the village, but I know he and his family were also very involved in their church. And, even as I was just running last year, Mike, who was still facing health issues and things like that, reached out to talk to me and, was very supportive of me. I truly appreciated that support because, we've lost him. Just in the last year or two, we've lost Gordon Saray, who was another mayor. But a lot of the folks that, kind of helped build this Village of Marvin from the start, and made a lot of good decisions that have brought us to where we are today. I think really deserve our recognition, our respect, and just sad for the community, but extremely sad for his family, and my best wishes to them.
Yeah, I think, Jamie, you shared with me that you guys were on sort of opposite sides, but we get so close, and it's kind of how really government and different parties should operate and stuff, and he was just that kind of an individual.
He did.
So.
I mean, he would tell me, I hate voting for you because you're a Republican. And I said, yeah. I said, listen, I voted for you and you're a Democrat, so we're even. But he was one of those really good people that, again, would listen. And he would never take a position until everything was brought. And I learned a lot from him from that. Because we disagreed, right or left, we disagreed on a lot of things, but when we discussed them, we really got back to the middle. And there was always a solution there. Now, we were not in a position to make where a decision had to be made. But these were world ideas. They were U.S. ideas, but they were also local ideas. And he was a testament to John, to what he said. He helped Marvin to get us to where we're at today. He was one of those people. And I guarantee you along the way, there were things that maybe he didn't see eye to eye on, but he helped bridge the gap and bring people together. And if nothing else, that should always be a testament that any council should work to get to. But again, it is certainly a sad day for me, and I hope I just want his family to be happy, and with having to deal, or not happy, but it's a hard time, and I love their family to death, and but he will certainly be missed. This community will miss a great person.
Well, if it's okay with council, I mean, he served for 6 years in this community. I'd like to request maybe the flag to be flown at half-staff until his funeral or whatever, if that would be, I don't know if that's appropriate or not for some of that. We could do that if you guys are all okay with it.
I think that would be a great
Agreed.
gesture.
Absolutely.
And if nothing else, they'll ask why it's at half-staff, and, you know, you have an opportunity to share with them. We lost a good resident of the community, so, all right. Please,
I was just
please
going to
do.
say that would be
Okay.
nice.
All right. Thank you, guys, for sharing your
Thank you.
stories. Next up, we have a review of action items.
All right. We'll accept the Strat Grant Award that was on the consent agenda. Davey's we're going to move forward with the drainage ditch proposal and get a formal quote between Hunter and Davey there. You guys made 2 appointments to the PRG board. I'll notify them in preparation for the PRG board's October meeting. Christina's going to check with the Union County Sheriff's Office on using off-duty for speed enforcement. Davey is going to touch base with the Firethorn HOA about them getting an encroachment agreement for us for additional signage. And we'll have the flag at half-mast for Mike Cognac, and we'll feature him in the newsletter and on social media. We're also going to get the wireless mics fixed. That'll be by the end of the week.
Christina, did you find out anything about Marvin School Road?
I have not got the packet in the mail yet. We have received a voicemail that NCDOT is reducing the speed limit on Marvin School Road. I don't know from where to where quite yet, but the speed limit should be reduced to 25 here in the next couple of weeks. I'll have more information, hopefully at the work session, to report to you all on that.
So as soon as we get that, let's make sure that we publish that so that people aren't like, I can't believe you guys didn't tell us. And I don't have anything to go over. You can skip me.
Okay, so nothing to review. All right, we'll go to the review. Council comments. Wayne, how about you start it off?
Thank staff, deputies, and the fellow council people here for the support and everything that Marvin tries to do, and the mayor.
This is a good day. All right. Jamie?
I echo Wayne's sentiments. Staff works hard. They do a lot. They do a lot with an uphill climb that we battle on a regular basis just from, we have 8,000 residents, so to speak, close, somewhere, I don't know. But we have to take care of all those residents. They're not just 2 or 3 residents that are out there. And I do believe that we, as a council, and certainly I know staff works very hard to take care of every Marvin resident. And I appreciate the hard work and the effort that you have to go through to make that happen. And a testament to Christina to, and her team to pull that off. And just kind of reminiscent of, again, what I said about Mike. And you guys do, you do that. And it's much appreciation. And to the our deputies as well. They do a job that we won't do. So, thank you.
I'm good, thank you.
So I'm going to ditto what these 2 said, but also my condolences to the Cognac family at this time of their loss. Our thoughts and prayers go out to you. And yeah, just know that we're thinking of you.
And I'll close out by again thanking staff, reiterating, and certainly condolences to the Cognac family. Our hearts are with you. One final note I'm just a big band cheerleader. In fact, actually, I celebrated my 45th high school reunion out of state believe it or not, most of the kids that showed up were in band and all of that. So it was kind of fun it was a small group, but it was really nice. But this weekend is Union County Preview, and that's all the Union County schools get together. It's a big fundraiser for Marvin, and it's an opportunity to get to see all the high schools in one location. No one's anywhere near their complete show, but it gives you a little taste of what's to come. And watching them grow from the start all the way to the finish is amazing. And so I personally tear up because I am so involved with it, and I just love watching them grow as kids, and seeing it 45 years later, how that group is still connected, it's kind of cool. So. But if you're open to that, I think there are signs out, if you haven't noticed them, for Union County Preview this Saturday at the high school. So it's an all-day event, so.
Weather's gonna be terrible.
What's that?
Weather's not gonna be good.
Oh, that's not good then. All right, with that, I think we had a request from Kim to move into a quick closed session to discuss some issues with
Yes,
some
we
public
need-
comments.
No, we need to consult with the attorney.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
So I'm going to make a motion to recess in a closed session pursuant to NCGS 143.318.11A. Is that it? Just A? A3, to consult with the attorney retained by the public body
All right.
to protect attorney-client privilege.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you all. Okay, thank you.
I had a feeling, I don't know what it was, I thought, we're gonna go into surprising closed session.
Okay, so I'm making a motion to adjourn at 7:54 PM.
All's in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right,
Where's
thanks,
Jamie
y'all.
at?
Peace out. Oh, wait, Jamie, do you want to talk to Bill about CRTV?
I can do them here.